Welcome to the INFOWARS Nightly News. It is Tuesday, March 3rd, 2015, and I'm Leanne McAdoo. Here are tonight's top stories.
Tonight, as Obama releases a new plan to increase federal control of police, one town took local control by firing their police and replacing them with private security, getting a 61% drop in crime. And has the war on drugs finally run out of lies? The DEA says it's now worried about stoned bunnies. All that and more on tonight's INFOWARS Nightly News.
Well, seizing on the opportunity to use national outrage surrounding an out-of-control police force that are shooting unarmed people all across the country, Obama has used this as an opportunity to unveil a new national policing policy, which amounts to little more than a federalization of the nation's police. This plan is entitled Task Force on 21st Century Policing, and it's a plan for a progressive takeover of state and local policing.
The Obama administration is taking control of state and local police by adding more rules to federal funding that cops have to obey. This is the exact same strategy the feds used to create Common Core. To get federal money, you have to do what the feds say. Problem is, police are already addicted to getting free goodies from the government, from riot gear to grenade launchers and even MRAPs. And just like the lawmakers up in D.C. who listen to special interests and not the American people, your neighborhood cops are going to listen to the feds who are showering them with free gifts and not your local community. This is one way the Obama administration is fighting back against states who are refusing to enforce federal gun control and executive amnesty. And it's also similar to Agenda 21, in which your city council takes orders from the UN and not the taxpayers. Unfortunately, this is exactly what Obama wants, to expand federal power at the expense of not only your voice in government, but also your rights.
Now, there are some positive recommendations in this plan. They are including things like eliminating these ticketing quotas, having less confrontational practices by police at protests, obviously not wearing riot gear, but maybe going in soft cop clothing. They want to diversify law enforcement so that they will reflect the community that they're going to serve. And also, this should be a no-brainer, they want to collect more data on shootings and deaths by police because, as you'll recall, as a result of everything that's happened this last year in Ferguson and so on, a lot of states are not even required to say how many people have been killed in encounters with police. Now, the president basically gave a little wink to his media allies and said, focus on these things. He said, I expect our friends in the media to really focus on what's in this report and pay attention to that. And this is, of course, instructing the media allies to help this federalization of policing. But one thing that's sure to be overlooked by these allies of Obama's in the media is the fact that this police task force is recommending the doing away with the FBI's immigration violator database. Now, this pertains to the FBI's National Crime Information Center database. This was actually created decades ago. It collects information on everybody, but one specifically for immigration violators was enacted in the early 2000s. So there's nothing about scrapping that entire database that's collecting cross-jurisdictional information and sharing that with police officers on citizens, but they want to do away with the part that's pertaining to the immigration violators. This database allows officers to find out if the people that they're interacting with are wanted for crimes in other jurisdictions. It tells officers if a person has an outstanding removal order, if they failed to complete a registration requirement, or whether they've previously been deported with a felony conviction. So despite the fact that this is a very useful tool in tracking immigration violators and possible terrorists, the Obama-appointed task force is suggesting that it be put on ice. So this is part of a larger immigration strategy, of course, which is taking immigration enforcement out of the hands of local and state law enforcement agencies and putting that under the jurisdiction of Homeland Security. So now we have a president that is saying that he wants to ban certain types of rifle ammunition because it's dangerous. It can be used to potentially pierce through a cop's protective armor if it's fired from a handgun. So here he's considering banning a certain type of this popular rifle ammunition because, he's so concerned about law enforcement, yet he's wanting to do away with a useful tool that is allowing police officers to cross-check and see if they're coming in contact with any criminal illegal aliens, potential terrorists, or gang members, people who have already been deported, for criminal activity. When those are the ones that they're really trying to have the Border Patrol focus on, those are the ones they really are wanting to deport, but yet they're doing away with this really useful tool and, of course, putting agents in harm's way. So it's very mixed messages there. But let's take a look at this little town in Texas. They seem to have the answer to all of these problems. They're just getting rid of their cops altogether. Now, this is Sharpstown, Texas. It's located just southwest of Houston. They decided in 2012 that regular public policing was proving wholly ineffective, and they opted not to renew a contract with the constable's office. They replaced the entire police department with private security officers with the company SEAL Security Solutions, and they saw a remarkable drop in crime by 61%. Now, James Alexander, who's the director of operations for SEAL, told the reporters at guns.com that the reason for such a dramatic drop has come because there's more sensible policing in areas that need it the most. They don't just randomly drop off a cop in an area and say, "Go patrol," and they actually engage with the community. Of course, there is a less bureaucratic paperwork that they have to deal with, and there's more accountability. Here, these are private contractors, so if there is a claim made against an officer, that means that claim is against them personally. There's no taxpayers there to bail them out. It's not a faceless government agency that actually gets a paid vacation if they do something wrong. Now, in addition, companies like SEAL are operating as businesses, and so that means they're profit-driven. They have to provide the most efficient service, and private contractors are less likely to receive hordes of unwanted and outdated military equipment. So what do you think? Should the rest of the country be giving police a little bit of competition? Here in Sharpstown, Texas, they're saying that they're having to, think a little bit more about their policing policies, really look at who they're hiring. And people are going to be a lot less likely to pull the trigger on an unarmed teenager when they know that they will be personally held accountable and they're not just going to be covered by that thin blue line and, of course, get paid time off. Or in the case of 12-year-old Tamir Rice, Cleveland blamed him for his own death. They said that this 12-year-old young black boy who was playing with a toy gun on the playground was directly and proximately his death was caused by the failure of Tamir to exercise due care to avoid injury. Well, Edward Snowden may finally stand trial. His attorney revealed today that they are working with the United States on his return home. Now, Snowden said that his biggest regret through all of this is that he didn't come forward sooner with these leaks. And he's also said that he will return home if he is given a fair trial by the U.S. government. Snowden has been charged with theft of government property and 2 counts of violating the 1917 Espionage Act for leaking classified documents. Now, Snowden's attorney might want to find out what kind of a plea deal that David H. Petraeus just made with the Justice Department. Petraeus is one of the best-known military commanders of his generation. He pled guilty to providing his highly classified journals to a mistress when he was the director of the CIA. So this all boils down to David Petraeus had about 8 black books that he had a lot of classified information, and he had it in an unlocked desk drawer. And his biographer, also known as his mistress, kept asking him about these black books. Are we going to include these in your biography? And at first he was like, well, there's a lot of classified information. The notebooks contained handwritten classified notes about official meetings, war strategy, intelligence capabilities, and the names of cover officers. And she kept asking him about it. So eventually he caved in and gave her these black books with all of this classified information. When he was initially asked about it, he denied handing over this information to his mistress. Now, Mr. Petraeus has agreed to plead guilty to 1 count of unauthorized removal and retention of classified material. This is a misdemeanor. Now, he's eligible for up to 1 year in prison, but prosecutors are going to recommend just 2 years of probation and a $40,000 fine. So it's a pretty sweet deal considering the fact that the Department of Justice has really cracked down on government officials sharing secrets with journalists. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here. But Stacey Herbert of the Kaiser Report nailed it when she tweeted this out today. She said, Snowden revealed classified info for no personal gain, only to his oath to the Constitution. Petraeus released info to get laid. That was just one of the many tweets that I find interesting. So be sure to follow me on Twitter at Leanne McAdoo. Coming up, I'm going to have David Knight in studio with me. We're going to be talking about another really silly thing that I found on Twitter today, stoned bunny rabbits. So you can always find a little humor there on my Twitter feed. But now we want to talk about this petition that came out last month. It was seeking to ban laws making mandatory vaccination. It's gained already over 86,000 signatures, and it's well on its way to reaching its goal, but it still requires about 14,000 more by this Friday, March 6th. To necessitate a response from the White House. This is a petition entitled Prohibit Any Laws Mandating the Force and Requirement of Vaccinations of Any Kind. This appeared on the We the People website last month, and it petitions against making vaccinations of any kind mandatory, including forcing children to be vaccinated to attend public schools, activities in daycare centers, and also working adults in the public or private sector. To date, 29 states have proposed legislation intending to limit vaccine exemptions and the right to refuse based on informed consent. So they are really doubling down on this. So be sure to follow the link that's provided in that article. It'll also be provided underneath the YouTube video as well. Add your name to that list. You have until Friday, March 6th. Now, vaccine freedom advocates were putting officials on notice here in Austin today. The activists spoke with their elected officials about the potential risks of vaccines.
I am Donna Votee, and I'm here to testify against Bill 465 and Senate Bill 29 that would eliminate the right to opt into the system, and they want you to have to sign a form to opt out. I'm sorry, that is so wrong. Wrong.
Folks, are you listening to yourselves? Tracking, database. You know, you're talking about, not about the United States Constitution and our individual unalienable rights. You're talking about communism.
Database, computer list, tracking. Hello, you know, that's not the American way. What they're talking about is the Communist Manifesto here.
And come on, 9 bills, you know what this is about. This is about eliminating the waivers, eliminating our right to opt out of vaccines, and you know it. 9 bills, did we hit the vaccine jackpot in Texas or what? Come on. So we know that it's all about eliminating our rights to say no, tracking us, you know, and that's a matter of faith. It's a matter of conscience to me. And it's not only a legal matter, it's a theological matter, because your right of faith says, who is your sovereign? Is the state of Texas our sovereign, or is God my sovereign, and is God in control of my body? I don't mean to be profane here, but it's none of your damn business if I have a vaccine or if my kids are vaccinated or not.
The Republican form of government has several components: unalienable rights and the sovereignty of the individual. And this committee would take away the individual's right to privacy, the individual's right to medical freedom.
My name is LaRock Flemings, and I'm representing myself on behalf of an ad hoc organization, Texas for Vaccine Choice.
Okay, may I reiterate, though, that this bill is not about whether to get vaccinated or not. And we are very firm that in Texas, the parents should make that choice. That's an important choice.
Yes, ma'am, but when you look deeper, when you combine this bill with the other bills that are being proposed at both the state level as well as the federal level to mandate vaccinations and deny parents the choice to decline vaccinations when they have a firm